Let me tell you something real clear. A woman who knows her worth, that's a woman a man can't play with. Too many ladies think the secret to keeping a man is chasing him, calling him first, proving yourself, showing him you care more than he does. But listen to me, the moment you start chasing a man, he stops valuing you. Why? Because men don't respect what comes too easy. We respect what we have to rise up to deserve. You don't chase a man. You set a standard that makes I step up. A man changes when he realizes he can lose you. A man grows when he realizes you're not impressed by bare minimum behavior. A man becomes better when he understands that the only way to keep a woman like you is to become better himself. When I say a man values what he has to earn, not what chases him, I'm talking about a truth that has existed long before relationships became complicated by phones, social media, and everybody trying to prove something. Men are wired to rise toward what inspires them, not run toward what pressures them. When something comes too easy, it doesn't feel meaningful. Not because the woman isn't valuable, but because the man didn't have to grow, didn't have to rise, didn't have to become anything better to keep her. And when a man doesn't have to elevate himself, he ends up taking her presence for granted. He sees her effort as something automatic, something guaranteed, something he can always return to later because she's made herself too available, too accessible, too willing to carry the emotional load. A man places higher value on something he invests effort into. When he has to think about you, plan for you, show up for you, be consistent with you, he becomes emotionally connected. When he has to take small steps toward you, calling you back, choosing you, listening to you, learning you, he becomes conscious of what he's building. But when he doesn't have to put in that effort, because the woman is doing all the pursuing, all the calling, all the planning, all the checking in, he becomes passive. And a passive man is a man who will never appreciate the woman he has. A man respects what he has to earn because the process forces him to reveal his intentions. If he really wants you, he'll put himself on the line. He'll make space, make effort, and make you feel secure. But when a woman chases a man, she removes his need to reveal anything. She gives him attention he didn't earn, loyalty he never asked for, and energy he did not match. Instead of asking himself what he must do to be worthy of her, he becomes comfortable with the idea that she is already his without him lifting a finger. And the moment that happens, the dynamic shifts. She cares too much. He cares too little. She overthinks. He becomes careless. She tries harder. He tries less. Not because he is a bad man, but because human nature responds to effort. What you work for, you value. What you don't work for, you overlook. When a man earns a woman, he feels proud of himself. He feels like he achieved something. He feels honored. And because of that, he protects it. He nurtures it. He becomes intentional about keeping that connection alive. But when he doesn't earn her, he feels no sense of responsibility. He hasn't invested emotionally. He hasn't taken any risks with his heart. He hasn't made any sacrifices. And people rarely cherish what required no sacrifice. It slips easily through their fingers because they were never holding it tightly to begin with. A woman's value doesn't increase because she chases harder. It increases when she steps back and lets a man show who he wants to be in her life. When she allows him to approach her instead of running after him. When she lets him demonstrate consistency instead of rewarding his bare minimum. When she makes space for him to act instead of filling that space for him. A man who truly wants a woman will never be confused, hesitant, lazy, or careless. He will show it. He will express it. He will move toward her because he sees her as someone worth the effort. That's why chasing a man never results in commitment, respect, or love. But letting him earn you changes everything about how he sees you and how he treats you. When I say your standards teach a man how to treat you, I mean every boundary you set, every no you enforce, every expectation you stand on is a lesson. You don't have to lecture a man, argue with him, or repeat yourself 100 times. A man learns who you are not by what you say, but by what you accept. If you accept inconsistency, he'll give you inconsistency. If you accept excuses, he'll hand you more excuses. But if you stand firm on what you deserve, he will either rise to meet that level or walk away. And either outcome is a blessing for you. A man pays attention to a woman's standards more than her words. You can tell him, I want effort. But if you reply instantly to every late night message, he learns he doesn't have to plan ahead. You can tell him, I want respect. But if you let him disappear and reappear whenever he wants, he learns you'll tolerate being treated like an option. A standard is only a standard when you're willing to walk away from anything beneath it. The moment you bend your standards for a man who hasn't earned you is the moment he learns you don't fully believe in your own value. A woman with standards doesn't have to be loud about them. She doesn't need attitude. She doesn't need games. She doesn't need to pretend. Her energy speaks for her. A man can feel the difference between a woman who's desperate to hold on to him and a woman who knows she'll be fine with or without him. The second type of woman, the one who knows her worth, demands effort simply by existing. Her silence teaches him more than her explanations ever could. Her absence teaches him more than her presence used to. Her self-respect becomes the guideline for how he treats her. Men respond to clarity. They respond to boundaries. When a woman says, this is what I expect, and if you can't meet it, I'm not staying, a good man doesn't get scared. He gets motivated. He sees her standards not as demands, but as direction. He sees them as an invitation to grow, to be better, to take her seriously. A real man appreciates a woman who refuses to settle because he knows she will also hold him accountable in meaningful, loving ways. But a man who only wants convenience will be quick to call her too much, too picky, or hard to get. He says that because he knows he can't meet the bar she's set, and instead of rising, he'd rather run. Your standards are the filter that protects your peace. Without standards, you attract men who only want temporary comfort, not real connection. With standards, you attract men who are ready for responsibility, honesty, and commitment. A woman with standards doesn't wrestle for attention. She receives it. She doesn't chase. She gets pursued. She doesn't beg for clarity. Clarity is given to her. And if it's not, she has the strength to move on without hesitation. A man will always test your standards, not intentionally, not maliciously, but naturally. He will see what you allow, what you ignore, what you overlook. And every time you choose your self-respect over temporary loneliness, you're teaching him exactly how you expect to be treated. You're teaching him that you are not replaceable, not negotiable, and not a woman who accepts the bare minimum. You're showing him that access to you is a privilege, not a guarantee. And a man who truly values you will honor your standards because he knows they're what elevate him into the man he wants to be. When you start focusing on yourself, something powerful happens that most women don't even realize at first. Your confidence changes the entire energy you carry. A woman who is centered, fulfilled, and secure within herself becomes magnetic without even trying. You don't have to chase a man when you're busy chasing your growth. You don't have to beg for attention when you're giving yourself the love you once waited for from others. Men feel the difference between a woman who needs them for validation and a woman who wants them but doesn't depend on them. And when you're in a season of focusing on yourself, your glow, your goals, your healing, you naturally attract effort, respect, and sincerity. A man pays attention to a woman's confidence more than anything else. Not the kind of confidence that's loud or showy, but the quiet kind that says, I know who I am and I'm not lowering myself for anyone. When you're focused on improving your life, your habits change. Your boundaries become stronger. Your time becomes more valuable. You stop entertaining weak conversations, shallow interest, and inconsistent behavior because you don't have the capacity for anything that drains you. That shift instantly separates you from every other woman who is chasing, begging, or settling. You become the woman he cannot overlook, When a woman starts investing in her own happiness, men notice not because she's trying to attract them, but because she's becoming someone worth respecting. When you're consistent with your own goals, a man has to be consistent to keep up with you. When you take care of your mind, your body, and your peace, he knows he has to come to you correctly. When you build a life that brings you joy outside of him, he realizes that he's not your entire world, he's a part of it. And that makes him appreciate the position he holds even more. Men change their behavior when they see a woman who doesn't lose herself in the process of loving them. A woman who can walk away if she needs to. A woman who doesn't tolerate emotional laziness. A woman who doesn't take crumbs when she knows she deserves the whole meal. When you focus on your own growth, it forces a man to look at himself too. He becomes aware of where he's lacking. He becomes aware of the things you're not willing to compromise on. He becomes aware of the fact that you're not depending on him to feel whole. That awareness pushes him to either show up as the man he's capable of being or step aside for someone who will. Self-focus doesn't mean you stop caring about love or relationships. It means you stop abandoning yourself for the sake of them. It means you stop giving more than you receive. It means you stop making excuses for a man who hasn't grown yet. When your standards rise with your self-improvement, everything in your life upgrades, including the kind of men you attract. A man is drawn to a woman who has purpose, passion, and direction. He sees that she's not waiting for him to build a life for her. She's building it herself. And that makes him want to be part of it, not because she needs him, but because she inspires him. When your confidence comes from within, a man feels it instantly. He steps up. He becomes more intentional. He becomes more consistent, not because you asked him to, but because your growth reminds him that you are not a woman he can afford to lose. When a man realizes that you're not depending on him for happiness, everything about the way he behaves begins to shift. Most people think men want a woman who needs them, but that's not true. A mature man wants a woman who chooses him, not one who clings to him out of fear, loneliness, or insecurity. When you're emotionally independent, when you have your own joy, your own peace, your own identity, you become a different kind of powerful. You become a woman who can love deeply without losing herself. And that is the kind of woman a man respects instantly. A man pays close attention to how you treat yourself. If you rely on him to feel valued, he'll start to take his place in your life for granted. But when he sees that you can stand on your own 2 feet, when he sees that you don't collapse emotionally every time he pulls back a little, when he sees that your happiness isn't controlled by his presence, he starts treating you differently. He becomes more careful with you. He becomes more respectful. He becomes more intentional because he knows your emotional stability isn't in his hands. And that humbles him in the best way. When you live a life that is full, balanced, and meaningful without being centered around a man, you create an environment where love grows naturally instead of forcefully. You're not chasing him. You're not begging him. You're not living your life around his moods. You're living for yourself first. And that makes him want to be part of your world, not because you need him, but because you've created a life that feels good to step into. A man is drawn to a woman who makes him feel chosen, not responsible for her entire emotional well-being. There is something incredibly attractive about a woman who doesn't break down every time something goes wrong. A woman who can self-regulate, who can take a moment, breathe, calm herself, and move forward. A woman who isn't controlled by fear of being alone, fear of being abandoned, fear of losing someone. That kind of emotional maturity is rare, and men recognize it instantly. A man will elevate his behavior around a woman who doesn't let her happiness depend on how he acts on any given day. He knows he can't play with her emotions because she's not wrapped around him. She's wrapped around her own purpose. When you're emotionally independent, you can love clearly. You can make decisions from wisdom instead of insecurity. You can communicate your needs without sounding desperate. You can walk away from situations that don't align with your peace. You can say no to inconsistent love without second-guessing yourself. And trust me, a man always notices when a woman has the strength to walk away. Not in a dramatic way, but in a calm, self-assured way that says, I know my worth and I won't stay where I'm not valued. When a man sees that your happiness is rooted inside you, in your purpose, your self-care, your growth, your mindset, he begins to admire you more. He begins to appreciate your strength. He puts in more effort because he knows you're not emotionally dependent on him. He steps up because he understands that your love is a choice, not a need. And men never take that lightly. That's when he starts becoming more consistent. That's when he starts being more attentive. That's when he starts giving you the kind of emotional effort he gave in the beginning, and sometimes even more. Because he realizes that a woman who is whole on her own is a woman worth building a life with. When you stop overgiving, something shifts inside you and around you. You begin to see people for who they really are, not for who you hope they will become. And when you stop pouring more into someone than they ever pour back, you create a natural separation in your life. The wrong man quietly slips away, and the right man rises to the surface. Overgiving blinds you. It makes you ignore red flags, excuses, and lazy behavior. But when you pull your energy back, you suddenly start seeing the truth. A man who only stayed because you were doing all the emotional labor won't stick around when he has to start giving effort. He'll slowly fade. He'll become distant. He'll get uncomfortable, not because you did something wrong, but because he was never built for real partnership. A woman's over-giving becomes a crutch for the wrong man. It allows him to stay immature. It allows him to avoid accountability. It allows him to benefit from your loyalty without ever evaluating his own. You give him patience he didn't earn, understanding he didn't reciprocate, forgiveness he didn't grow from. But the moment you stop doing that, the moment you say, I'm not carrying this relationship alone anymore, his true character shows. If he walks away, that's your answer. If he suddenly loses interest, that's your closure. A man who only loved the convenience you provided will never love the real you. And that's why your decision to stop over giving is not a loss, it's protection. But something completely different happens with the right man. When you stop giving too much, the right man notices in a different way. He doesn't pull away. He steps forward. He doesn't take advantage. He fills in the gaps. He doesn't wait for you to do everything. He starts contributing because he wants to. The right man isn't intimidated by your boundaries. He respects them. He doesn't get offended when you pull your energy back to bring balance. He matches it. When you slow down, he speeds up. When you stop overextending, he begins to extend himself more. He sees the value in your effort, and instead of leaning on it, he adds to it. When you stop overgiving, you break the pattern that kept you stuck in one-sided relationships. You give a man the chance to show what he's willing to do without being carried. And that reveals everything. It shows who is invested and who is opportunistic. It shows who truly cares and who is just comfortable. It shows who wants to grow with you and who only wants to take from you. Overgiving puts you in the position of the giver and him in the position of the receiver. But healthy love requires both people to give, both people to invest, both people to show up. Pulling back doesn't mean you're being cold or difficult. It means you're choosing balance. It means you're no longer trying to earn love by doing too much. It means you've realized that effort coming only from your side is not love, it's survival. And you deserve more than survival. You deserve partnership, reciprocity, intentionality, and presence. A man rises when he feels he has something to rise for. When he sees you won't hand your heart over without him proving he can handle it. He becomes better. Not because you pressured him, but because he respects you. When you stop overgiving, you give him space to decide if he wants to step up. And the right man will always choose to rise, because losing a woman like you is a risk he's not willing to take. Never chase a man. Become the woman he doesn't want to lose. That's the real game changer. When you stop trying to prove yourself to a man and instead focus on building a life, a mindset, and a level of self-respect that stands tall on its own. He sees you differently. You go from being someone who is always available to someone he has to show up for. A man's behavior shifts dramatically when he realizes he's dealing with a woman who knows her worth, who isn't afraid of being alone, and who will walk away the moment she feels undervalued. He feels that energy. He senses that strength, and it affects him more than any words you could ever say. A woman who doesn't chase is not a woman who doesn't care. She's a woman who understands that love should never come at the cost of her dignity. She knows her time is precious, her heart is rare, and her presence is a blessing. And when a man sees a woman carrying herself like that, he knows he can't come in with half effort. He knows he can't slack. He knows if he wants to keep her, he has to contribute. He has to be consistent. He has to bring something real to the table. The fear of losing a woman who is whole confident and self-driven wakes a man up faster than any argument ever could. When you stop chasing, you give him space to choose you. You give him the opportunity to step up on his own. You give him the chance to show whether he sees your value or not. And that alone tells you everything you need to know. If he steps back, if he disappears, if he suddenly becomes inconsistent, then that's the answer right there. He was never ready, never serious, never mature enough to handle a woman of your caliber. But if he steps forward, if he matches your energy, if he begins to pursue you with clarity and intention, then you've found someone who truly understands what he has in front of him. Men don't value what chases them. They value what inspires them. A woman becomes unforgettable when she builds a life that is fulfilling with or without a relationship. When she has goals she's chasing, dreams she's working toward, and confidence that comes from the inside. A man doesn't forget the woman who didn't lose herself in loving him. He doesn't forget the woman who had her own identity, her own hobbies, her own purpose. He doesn't forget the woman who could walk away with grace instead of drama. That kind of woman leaves a permanent mark on a man's mind. You become the woman he doesn't want to lose when you stop giving unlimited access to your energy. You protect your peace. You value your time. You don't accept mixed signals, half love, or emotional laziness. You communicate clearly. You honor your boundaries. And through all of that, you remain soft, loving, feminine, but never desperate. That combination is powerful. That combination is rare, and men know it. A man will change instantly when he realizes he could lose a woman who carries herself with this kind of strength and self-love. It pushes him to grow. It pushes him to be attentive. It pushes him to be intentional. Not because you forced him, but because he knows he's dealing with a woman who doesn't settle. The kind of woman who elevates his life simply by being in it. When you become that woman, calm, confident, self-assured, you don't have to chase. He'll find his way to you on his own, because men don't lose women like that. They adjust, they rise, they value, they commit, they step up, because losing a woman who truly knows her worth is a pain they don't ever want to feel.